I'm going to tell you all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to a special edition, but kind of normal edition of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO, emerging tech, science, and futurism. My name is Luis Jimenez. I'm your host this evening. No Michael. I gave them the weekend off, and so I had to scramble around and get some friends to join us for this pretty interesting day. We're going to break it down as best we can. We've got Jazz Shaw, we've got Dan Zetterstom, Daniel Miller, and UFO Jane. Jane Kyle is here. We're going to go through it, you guys. But before we do, let's pay some bills. Of course, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. If you were wondering why their music sounded a little wobbly, it's because my computer is running slow. So hopefully we stay connected and everything is cool. But if you love the jams, check out their link. It is in the description below, a SoundCloud link, so check it out. Of course, this show will be available on our podcast, which is available on iTunes and Spotify pretty shortly after the show airs. So check that out. Please drop us a rate and review. It goes a very long way. You guys have been coming through with those rate reviews, so truly appreciate it. And we cannot forget to tell you to like, subscribe, ring the bell, so that way when stuff like this happens, you're notified and you can join us live for the information right in your face. We are so close to 5,000 subscribers. We're around less than 60. So if you could help us get there, that would be great. Truly appreciate it. Super chats are open, and we've also got a Patreon. There's great ways to support the show. We are a public access channel. We're supported by viewers like you. So if you want to help continue this show happen as much as it does 5 days a week, then please consider joining or supporting through there. If you can't, don't sweat it. None of our stuff is behind a paywall. Everything is accessible to everybody, no matter how much or how little you pay. So enjoy. The content is yours. So let's get into it. We've got some really fun friends here today. The first is Jazz Shaw from Salem Medium. Sir, how you doing?
Doing great. Been a kind of busy day unexpectedly the day before Thanksgiving, but a lot of stuff going down, and I know that's why we're all here.
Indeed it is. All right, without further ado, let us bring on Dan Zetterstrom, the Signal artist, co-host of That UFO podcast, resident friend. How you doing, my good buddy?
I'm great, thank you. I always say this, but your intros are so lovely. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And then, of course, we got two more familiar faces that will be joining us today. And just stay tuned. We could be having more friends join the show. And since you are, you know what, I'll bring on, basically, she's technically a producer right now because she has full control of the show. She
dear.
chooses to have it. So I was actually going to ask you, Jane, if you can help me keep an eye on the super chat because I'm the only producer here. So I've got a lot of stuff going on trying to look
So I
up
shouldn't
links.
pin myself when I sneeze like I did last time?
Hey, you're a producer. It's your call. Okay. And then, of course, last but not least, our host of our Tuesday show, Daniel Miller, who's a host of Known Quantities. Daniel, how you doing, man? Welcome.
Hey, Dan.
Doing very well. Thanks for having me. How's it going, guys? Fancy running into you guys here.
Yeah, what are the odds? Okay.
Not like there's anything going on.
I know. Slow day, right?
No, just trying to undermine. Just
Yeah.
trying the undermining of probably one of the greatest UAP legislative amendments ever written. No big deal.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to dive into. Reactions, who said what. The Twitter is on absolute fire today. You know, there's a big day when there's almost 200 people just to start the show, waiting for the show to start. So I want to say hello to everybody in the chat. I'm sorry if I don't get to everybody, but thank you to our moderators, Tino Tomaszewski, Aaron Desario, and all of our other moderators out there. I truly appreciate you guys keeping it respectful in the chat. We're hopefully going to have some people pop in. I've given the links to a couple other guests to make sure also that we don't fall into some sort of echo chamber. I want to discuss this from every absolute angle that we can, because it's important. We poked the bear, and I feel like we got a response from the bear, and everybody's like, oh, look at this, the bear's up, what's happening? All right, so let's get into it. So Jazz, I guess I'll start with you. Because you are a journalist, you write for many different news outlets, and your perspective on these things is always wonderful. So where should we start with this day?
Well, probably just with the announcement. I mean, we out of the blue, just last night, in the dark of night, right before a holiday, we heard an announcement that the Pentagon was, Department of Defense was basically suddenly jumping into the pit and saying, "Oh, don't worry about all this other UAP stuff. We're forming our own new office that's going to investigate UAP." And that showed up, and everybody was like, "Wait a minute! I thought we were dragging you kicking and screaming across the line." And yeah, they put that announcement out there, and you can go into the details of it, obviously, but the fact that they were coming out and saying, "Oh no, we're setting up this whole new office, and it's going to be investigating UAP in certain very limited areas," and that really caught everybody by surprise, and we were all scrambling all day. I was one of many people that's been going back and forth with several people in the Department of Defense, at the Pentagon, going, I'm sorry, what was that? What were you saying? And getting answers, and we'll cover some of those tonight. But it did draw an initial set of reactions from people as high up there as Lou Elizondo, saying like, "Oh, don't fall for this. This is a false flag." They're trying to undermine the Gillibrand Amendment, and there was certainly a case to be made for that. But I've been collecting information all day, so we're going to go through that and see where the most likely truth lies, but we're not going to get to the point where we can say absolutely, I don't believe one way or the other what they're doing, but we do have some good pointers.
Right. Okay, so then here's what my sort of initial thoughts on this is, God, the timing is just that is just so DOD. The other thing that caught, obviously, these new acronyms for these offices, and who's going to look after the office. It seems this whole thing seems to not only undermine it, it's causing confusion. But the good thing is, from what I've seen so far from a media standpoint, most of media has seen the catch on that, oh, this is the Department of Defense on its heels, and it literally lashing out at Congress and telling them this is what we're doing. Because it sounds like from the press release that they had on this, from Kathleen Hicks, correct, is that they're doing this. They're not asking for permission. It sounds like this office is going to be implemented. Did I read that right, Jazz?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. That's what Hicks is saying. She's also working with the DNI, which I was really surprised. We can talk about that more later. Where the person that we were lauding after her appearance at the National Cathedral last week, and being brave enough to say terrestrially, and we were all saying, "Wow, she's coming out and talking about this stuff. This is great." turns out at the same time she was working in the background, with the DoD and getting ready to launch this thing, which gave me some initial suspicions. But yeah, they're doing it, and they actually have congressional mandate to do it. So we're going to get to that in a minute with some of the conversations I had with people inside the department.
Okay.
But yeah, it's something they're announcing that they're doing. There's nothing illegal about what they're doing. Their motivations for doing it we can examine, and I'm sure we will. But yeah, this is a thing that's apparently already happening.
Dan, what are your initial thoughts on this this memorandum that was put out last night?
I kind of flip-flopped on it initially. My first reaction was, hold on, this is an Astro. Then
Yeah.
once I'd had my coffee and I read it, I thought, okay, well, this is kind of in response to the 25th of, I think it was 25th of June,
Right.
memorandum that was sent out. And I thought, cool, okay, they're responding to that. This is, I like to use train tracks in my analogies for your political system because it works pretty well. This is a separate train track from everything we're talking about to the NDAA. But then as it sat with me, I realized that what you said is absolutely correct. The timing is so suspicious. Everyone's going to be out of work for Thanksgiving. No one's going to be getting emails and phone calls. We could have, correct me if I'm wrong, but we could have thousands of people call their offices this weekend and there will be no one there to pick up the phone. I feel like it's calculated, and it's releasing things on a Friday in the UK is kind of a usual thing for things they just want buried over the weekend. And it feels like that to me.
Jane, what are your initial thoughts on the day's events?
Well, first off, shout out Mix West.
Mix best.
Mix Best and Andrew Reese for the super chat. I'll say this. I don't really know what to make of everything so far. Initially reading the memo, it feels like this rush thing that they're trying to slip in before the Thanksgiving weekend. It feels reactive. But then, it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And, how long was this other much longer acronym? Might as well just be AFLAC at this point. I refuse to keep up with all these acronyms. How long were they starting to work on that right after the UAP report, right? Which should have tasked them with doing that. So I think we still have some questions. I haven't really retweeted anything yet for of or against this. I am having that same, I think, gut instinct, though, that this feels like a competitive thing with Senator Gillibrand versus a collaborative thing. But I'm still taking it all in.
Dan, what do you think?
I'm just not sure. I will say that because it's hard to, because we're all just guessing on motivations, right? I will say the timing is weird because we all know that the NDAA is passing shortly, and if Gillibrand's proposal does go through, that is going to be the office that memo on the 25th did request. And so I kind of assumed that they were just going to wait and see what happened in the NDAA and then go forward. So the fact that it came out now, right before Thanksgiving break, it's just weird. And what I don't like about it is that it's a very short memo and they say details are forthcoming. And my question is, why announce it if you don't have the details? Why not just wait until you have details? Because the lack of details is kind of the biggest issue in all of this, is that all we know is that it says nothing about transparency in terms of congressional oversight, in terms of, unclassified reports for the public, or, who they're even reaching out to. And there's going to be an executive board, but who's in it? Who knows? It's kind of just next to Gillibrand's proposal, which is incredibly thorough, incredibly detailed. There's just this vague piece of junk that could really be anything. And it just feels silly. Just what's going on? What is it?
Jazz. So, question. Then let's move back to you real quick. I am curious to know, like, from a how does this? Let's say the NDAA goes through as written, and Gillibrand's amendment makes it into law. How does this undermine the power of that new Astro office if, say, both of these go into existence?
Well, that's what we're going to get into. I hope you probably have it queued up. I've been in conversation with, well, I was attempting to be in conversation with the National Intelligence Office, and I got redirected somehow again today. But I've been in long conversations, and we're going to share those this evening.
Which
Their
one should I start with,
explanation,
Jazz?
I don't know. Well, let me just tee it up and just say
Okay.
I tried as soon I woke up this morning. First thing I saw was that I was supposed to be on time off and doing stuff with my family, and I started reaching out to people, and I reached out to National Intelligence and sent them a note, and I waited longer than I normally wait to get an answer. I did get an answer, the first of several, but it wasn't from who I sent the note to. My note had been forwarded to someone who most people are familiar with, Susan Goff, and she wrote back to me. And I think everybody can see the note right here. The questions that I asked had to do with, is this somehow going to supplant an office established by the Gillibrand Amendment, or would they be working in parallel, things like that? The first sentence you can see right here from Susan was, we're not going to comment on or speculate about pending legislation. We can talk about that. That's the idea that they're not aware of what's going on with the NDAA is insane. But she's not saying they're not aware of it. They're just saying we're not going to comment on it. And the next question I asked as a follow-on had to do with, well, this language for this new organization, which is being formed apparently, only talks about incursions into sensitive U.S. airspace, sensitive military airspace, things like that. Whereas the Gillibrand Amendment, as we've discussed previously, collects data everywhere. And the response we got from Susan, I'll just go ahead and read it. Special use airspace is airspace that is restricted for national security and other uses and includes military operations areas, firing ranges, etc. The AOIMSG, and we still don't know how to pronounce that, will be focused on the areas where there are security risks to our training operations and infrastructure, as did the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena UAP Task Force. Investigations of reports in airspace outside of DoD SUA is the purview of the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, whom we already collaborate with on UAP matters. So that was my first response from them. It was interesting that, first of all, I sent the response to the appropriate agency that's supposedly doing this, but I didn't get a response from them. They turned around and took my question and sent it back to Susan Goff, who I've been dealing with for the better part of 4 years now. And that's who I got the answer from. Later on, we'll talk about the fact she now has a new title, which is also interesting that we'll discuss. But if you look at what she's saying there in the initial response, there's nothing that's 100% incorrect. She does she made reference to me the fact that, the June 25th report told them, well, we need you to go and, have something to pick up from the UAP task force and take this seriously. And it does seem to me like they're using that as a basis for saying, well, we're just doing what you told us to do. The fact that it came out right before the Gillibrand Amendment was about to be up for debate and right before Thanksgiving when everybody goes on vacation, whatever. But we've been working on it the whole time. And here's our thing, and here's what we're doing. And they put out some language that even compared to the House version, which was really weak compared to the Gillibrand Amendment, has nothing for us. really. But they're saying they did something in response to the demands of the Senate following the June 25th request. So that's our first stepping stone in the conversation. I want everybody else to jump in. But they are using that, and I don't even want to say that as a pejorative. Um, they're basing their response. This wasn't something they cooked up last night. In theory, and it's probably true, they were given orders from the Senate back in June. It's now November, and you don't cook up something like this overnight. So they may very well have been working on something like this, and now was the time they coincidentally decided to announce it. So we're not looking at a case where it's like, oh, there's no way this is possible.
Yeah.
They
Well,
actually
what
have
about
grounds for this.
what about the information they withheld? The parts that they said they're going to release later. I mean, what did they save it for Christmas Eve? like what's going on?
What parts do you mean they were going to release later?
Well, it says in the memorandum that they're going to release how the office works. There are going to be more details that will be released soon. So if they've been working on it for a long time, I just figured they would have had those already prepared.
Well, again, I guess I have to play the devil's advocate, at least in the beginning, until we get to the end. Setting up an entire new office inside of the government in a bureaucracy of that size with the money that's in, and they didn't have a budget for this, by the way. They would have to go and take other Pentagon money and other personnel, just like the original ATIP did, and go shuffle them until they got a new budget, and put something like that together. So no, that doesn't happen overnight. So I'll play devil's advocate and I'll say, well, yeah, it takes time to set up something like that, and we don't have all the details yet. We're doing our best. This is their line, and now here's the name of the office we came up with, and here's what we're going to focus on. And the other big disappointment in it is they're only talking about incursions of UAP into controlled airspace. Totally way off the charts below what the Gillibrand Amendment talks about. They're only basically talking about flight crews, military people in really sensitive airspaces.
Right.
That's all this proposed office is talking about doing. And it could take a few months to set that up. I mean, it's the government. It takes time to do something like that. So I'm gonna throw them a bone and say, yeah, I could see that.
G West with a $5 donation said a few weeks ago, Lou tweeted out he was taking strategic pause in preparation of a major assault. Is this the major assault? He doesn't seem pleased. That's for sure. I mean, Lou Elizondo did, and we're going to get to what he said here in a second. My mom with a $20 super sticker. Thanks, Mom. Jefferson Lee with a $4.99 dono. Love you, Lou. Call your reps, people. Call and write your reps, people. Ask your family and friends to call and write and ask for support for the Gillibrand Rubio Amendment. This was a big part of what really got me excited today. Was and again, this is not mine. This belongs to all of us. But this idea of like, what are we doing today? Who are we calling? What do we got to say? Like, tell us what to do. Where are we going with this? And that was exciting because it's like, oh, okay, people want to get organized and galvanized. Okay, cool. So we had, I was circulated a really cool thing that our friends, I'll just call them our friends behind the scenes, were looking at. And they were sort of the counterpoints to what the DoD was doing. And I took a piece of that and used it as a brand new template for people to email. I emailed it out to all of my reps, and I got a phone call from my senator, Jimmy Gomez, basically saying, hey, we've seen this. It's getting passed on to the senator or the congressman, and maybe he'll get back to you if it's feasible. And it's like, awesome, great, thank you. That's all I wanted. They're looking at it like we have gotten to a point now where we are becoming a legitimate grassroots movement, like where we can organize, galvanize, and reach out to our local state representatives on the drop of a dime and demand them that this is not okay. Like, we are not happy with this, and we do not want, if this offense wants to exist on its own without interfering whatsoever with the new Astro office, if it gets signed into law, great, awesome. But if it's looking to undermine what is being done on that end, then I think we have a big issue. And again, the beautiful thing is that it seems like I've read let's see here. I've read today multiple articles: USA Today, The Drive, the Washington Examiner. The list goes on and on about all of these different news media outlets that are writing about this at the last second, and everyone seems to agree the Pentagon and the Department of Defense is undermining the Congress, is undermining the Senate, and it's not okay. And the only thing you have to do to let them know it's not okay is call your local state rep and tell them that it's not okay. I mean, if you need help with that, if you need to know what to say, what to email, check out our website. I've got it right here. I'll show you guys. I'll show you the new template. It's very, very simple to activate yourself and get in touch with these people. And I'm telling you, it works. So if you go to our website, thebigphonehome.com, and then you go down to write an email or letter, you select your template. The very first one at the top is the template that you can send and get some traction with this, or at least have your voice heard. You could tweet this, you could copy and paste it into an email. You could copy and paste this into the senator's website, because that's how you typically email your senator or congressman, is through their .gov website, and then you send it that way. So this is another way to do it. You could use this as a calling reference if you want to call and just literally read this verbatim. That's also incredibly effective. So that's like, that was the coolest part of this whole day for me. But I mean, I'm curious, like, Dan, what do you think about how the days transpired, but particularly what Jazz was saying about this office?
Well, I'll say, whichever side of the fence you fall on, whether you think this is calculated or not, I'm a little envious of you guys over there that you're arguing over two possible offices, and in the UK we're just we have our heads in the sand, right? There's a certain aspect
we
of,
are spoiled.
Smell the roses to this a little bit, but I was curious, Jazz, in your response there, how they explained it sounded like it was just renaming the UAPTF and adding the executive council. They also specified that they were collaborating with Homeland Security and another organization on UAP matters. And once again, I find myself asking, well, who made you the boss of this? You know, they're kind of taking everyone under their wing when we're asking for proper oversight. And our elected officials who should be given that oversight. So I'm right there with Luis. You know, use those templates, use your voices. I wish I could just come over to the US and just run down the streets, knocking doors, telling people to contact their officials. This is one of those
you can if you have a
can make
vaccine
difference.
passport. So, you know, feel free to come do that. Yeah.
Nice. I'll come on my way.
We have another email, a second one that I sent to Luis that we can throw up whenever he feels like it. But yeah, I mean, what you're saying, there's certainly reasons to be curious. There's certainly reasons to be suspicious. But in reality, and this is a conversation that's been going on in the background over here, the people who are setting up this office, they don't have the ability to stymie the Senate. They don't have the ability to say, oh, well, we're not going to have this Astro office because we've already done this. Let me see what this one is. Yeah, this is another one from Susan Goff. So I asked her, you know, I kind of made a joke because I used something that I want to give credit to Dean Johnson, who looked at the acronym and said that it was actually an office intended to mostly stop Gillibrand. And Susan Goff came back and said, no truth to that. Remember, the deputy secretary directed OUSD and intelligence, and I'm just going to mess it up at this point. Too many acronyms. To develop plan to formalize the UAPTF's mission, including identifying requirements for the establishment and operation of a new activity back on June 25th, long before Gillibrand proposed her amendment. Now, two things about this. Number one, in her first response to me, she said, we're not going to comment on any pending legislation. Then she turned around in her second thing and commented on the pending legislation. So that was a little odd. Okay. But we've been dealing with each other for like 4 years, and I think she feels comfortable to talk to me about some things. And it what she's saying, I really can't argue. But going back to what I was starting to say in answer to your question, Dan, is that there's nothing stopping them without any funding from setting up a new office to do this in response to the directions from the Senate that came out on June 25th. Nothing stopping them. But that also doesn't give them the authority to say, oh, well, now the Senate can't set up a new and command a new funded office. They don't have that ability. If they want to do something on their own in response to a demand from the Senate from last year, they can do that. But they don't have the ability to go, and oh, by the way, no need for the Gillibrand amendment, no need for any of this, we've got it covered, go away, run along. They don't have that ability. They can make the case that they're saying, we're setting up this agency, this office, with no funding, so they're having to redirect funding to set it up, whatever they're going to do. That doesn't give them the ability to say, now we're going to defy the Senate and not set up this new, much more expansive office that will go be demanded by the NDAA. Nothing like that exists. I do believe it's very possible that they're hoping, and I'm using the word hoping with scare quotes, that, well, if we toss this out right now, before we go into negotiations on the end of the NDAA, then maybe some of the people in the Senate and the House will go, oh, well, we don't need to do that now. It's already taken care of. Could that be their strategy? There's no way I could even phrase that question for them to ask it without accusing them of lying. So we haven't had that discussion. But I would not put it past them, for decades of how they've acted in the past, that they're seeing this as possibly an escape hatch. Like, well, if we do this now, then we won't have to do the Gillibrand thing, which is going to be really painful, and we can do just this thing, and we'll have an office that'll investigate, unidentified things that come into airspace, no transmedium, no submersible, and just things that are in our nuclear areas. And we were already looking at that anyway, so that's a pretty good out, right?
Yeah.
By the way, none of this is in my emails. I've shared everything with Lou. I shared it with Michael. I do not have confirmation. That's my interpretation of it. I think it was probably good timing for them as maybe a Hail Mary pass, but I don't think we need to be as worried as a lot of people, including Lou Elizondo, are, that this will wipe out the Gillibrand Amendment. I'm far more worried about our Director of National Intelligence than I am about anybody in the Senate or anything like that. I don't see Kirsten Gillibrand, Rubio, Gallegos, anybody backing down at this point. They're full steam ahead, and they're going. I'm far more worried about the national intelligence side than I'm about the Senate and the House side.
What worries you about the DNI specifically?
Well, what were we talking about last week, Luis? The DNI went down and went to the National Cathedral, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were all praising her because she said the brand new word, extraterrestrially. How brave of her. She's out there talking about this, Excuse me. She's raising these possibilities, asking these questions, saying we're interested, right? At the same time that she was doing that, go look at the memo that came out. The people that were setting up this new, weirdly acronymed office, specifically says in close cooperation with her. While she was down there at the National Cathedral saying all that, she was working with these guys setting up this office. That didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen last week. It's been going on over the summer. And she didn't say a word about it. And she went down to the National Cathedral and she said extraterrestrially. And we were all, and I was one of the people. It's like, we should put you on Mount Rushmore. Thank you for coming out and saying these things. But in the background, she was working with them setting up this office.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm a little confused, because last week it was Avril Haines that was at the cathedral, and
Right.
this memo is signed by Kathleen Hicks.
Right.
But it's
But
the
it did say
director of
in
national
close-
intelligence that this office is going to be under, right?
Mhm.
Well,
I mean,
it was
Not
phrased
under.
as not under. Let me just
The
pull this up here right now. It says
it's the USDI, right?
Defense Secretary of Defense, Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks, in close collaboration with the Director of National Intelligence,
Mhm.
which is the person we're talking about,
Which is Avril Haines, got it.
directed the Undersecretary of Defense, blah, 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 to establish within the office, blah, blah, blah.
There's so many acronyms. I just want to make sure that we're just clarifying for people, because it's difficult.
Yeah.
Like, it's really difficult to keep
understand.
it. Like, and
I
they just
understand.
threw two more even more difficult acronyms in there. With
I
this,
felt like
yeah.
Avril Haines. I felt like she
It was Hicks in conjunction with Haynes. At least that's what they're saying. In
Got it.
close
Yeah.
conjunction with Avril Haines.
Got
Mhm.
it.
And this was all going on while she was down at the National Cathedral saying extraterrestrially, and everybody, including me, was praising her. Like, I was predicting somebody said the words, let's
I
get
don't
out
know
there
if
and
I
do that.
praised her.
Well, I did.
No, I
But
just
in the background,
yeah.
she was working on building this office.
I very much felt like I was ready for her next move though after that, her speaking in the cathedral, because she was, oh, it looks like now we're going to have to do this. We haven't done this before. It looks like now we're going to have to do this. So, and I don't think she would have just showed up at the cathedral. She just happens to be interested in UAP, all of a sudden. So to me, it's really not that surprising. And thank you, by the way, to Witness Citizen, Jason Frey for super chats.
Thank you so much
Kane's
for getting
Lady, Jason Frey sending emails in between making checks, so you guys could do it along with your Thanksgiving, food making. I'm not a cook.
Kane's Lady's my sister, and yeah, thank you guys. Thank you all
That's
you guys
awesome.
that are. We're just trying to make sure that the show has a good flow today. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, so if there's not a question in the super chat, we may just keep going and show it. But we truly appreciate the support, just to give you guys the heads up. But
And everybody that
continue,
was
Jane.
asking in social media, by the way, before Jane continues,
Mhm.
there were debates about this. The offer is still open. $50 super chats, still a shot offer.
There you go.
I'm ready. Anybody wants to put in a 50, get it up there.
If you're new to the show, Jazz Shaw will take shots for $50. So yeah, you'd be shocked. A lot of folks chip into on that level. So we truly appreciate it.
My liver's dying for the number of people who have contributed just with that effort.
You put gin in your Cheerios. All right. Jane. So you were continue, please.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I don't find it very surprising that she's part of some new UAP effort, because it seems like it was being positioned that way. I guess it's just, my question is, who are we supposed to follow? Are we supposed to follow Avril Haines? Are we supposed to follow Lou Elizondo? Which government
all of them
resource are we supposed to support? Because right now I feel like it's, this office versus this amendment versus this, which feels very much like the UFO Twitter turf wars, right? So I think, I definitely have that heebie-jeebies feeling about the memo. And it does feel, it is kind of laughable if you compare it to all the detail in the amendment. But to that point, maybe they can be complementary, because they are pretty different. I think if you really look into it, I don't know why they would have to conflict, or why one would exist without the other.
But they can.
Right.
That's what I
Right,
was.
yeah.
That's what I was asking Susan Goff, and I didn't get an answer initially, but I got a partial answer later. There's no reason that there can't be the new Astro office.
Right.
And if the Senate and the House get together and they pass this as part of the NDAA, the military has no option. That's an order from the government who has oversight, who funds them. That office will be formed. Is it impossible that there could still be a separate, weirdly acronymed office that's like, you know what we're focusing on? We're focusing on intrusions into controlled airspace, particularly around nuclear sites, things like that. Those two could exist at the same time. Really, I mean, they could.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have got MUFON, and we've got all of us.
The one that Gillibrand wants would be fully funded. The one they're talking about is going to be reapportioned like ATIP was from existing resources.
So
but they can still do it.
It's safe to say that the DOD has no jurisdiction here. If the law passes, it passes, and they're going to have to follow it. If it even goes, it goes above their office essentially. If
it goes absolutely above their office.
Yeah.
If the law passes and that office is not formed and fully funded and put into effect, the people who refuse to do that will be in defiance of the law. There are people who can be held in what's called contempt of the Senate. And can go to jail. There's a guy right now that's looking at possible jail time. His name is Steve Bannon. You know, if you defy the laws that are passed and the things that are issued by the legislature, then you're at risk. Not only could your budget be slashed next year, you could literally go behind bars. So it'll happen. If they do it, it's going to happen. The question is this other new weirdly named office going to happen?
Right.
They might both, from what I can tell so far.
Okay. Miller, any thoughts?
I mean, this is why Congress being interested in the topic is so important, because they control the purse strings. You know, that was it. Jazz Saw said, like, you know, nice budget you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. Right?
Oh my God, I got in trouble today because I tweeted that to the DNI. Like, oh my God. And it was early in the morning. I was having coffee. I should have been at my best decision making.
I enjoyed it.
I actually tweeted that at them, and I got a comment back privately. It was like, "Are you threatening them? Because if you threaten them, that's like a violation of the law." But I was like saying, no, somebody might threaten.
You're not a Congress person,
you know.
Right? But
so,
exactly,
sorry
they
about
make
that,
the law.
Guys.
No, I enjoy it. They make the law, and DOD has to follow through. You know, and whether they actually will, I guess it's a whole other story. But I think the biggest fear just comes from the fact of whether this new office will supplant and mollify the senators who maybe already were interested, then say, you know what? This kind of does it. We'll come back to this later and see if it's still a problem. And that's, I think, the biggest concern for a lot of people is that it won't. But basically, I think Brian Bender, was it, who reached out to Gallego, and apparently Gallego also spoke to Gillibrand. And I think from what I can tell, there definitely still is an interest in pushing forward something. So it doesn't seem like they're completely satisfied with whatever was announced. But that's the thing. It's just, who knows right now. We're in very low information territory at the moment.
Danny, what say you?
Oh, we have too many Dans now.
Yeah. Well, I'm calling him Miller. I'm calling you Danny.
Oh, okay, cool. That's fine.
Call him Zig. I always call him Zig.
There you go, Zig. Yeah, we can stick with Zig.
That works too.
I talk to him so much behind the scenes, and I'm just like, Danny boy. He's just like my little Danny boy. But yeah, Zig, we could call you Zig.
Listening to you guys talk about this, and mentioning the acronym so much, I don't know if you guys have seen there's this skit that George Carlin does where he talks about language and how it changes over time. Namely, he goes from kind of shell shock to PTSD, and kind of just says how you kind of really take the human emotion out of the language and kind of make it this inaccessible term. And now I'm looking at this office title, and I get the feeling in the actual press release, UAP as a phrase is not mentioned in reference to the new office. They always say airborne objects.
Right.
And it feels a little like, you know, they're changing the name of what they're calling it. You could argue that they're zeroing in and giving it a label, but it certainly makes it less headline worthy, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it definitely does. I mean, no matter how respectable the journalist is, they're going to have a hard time saying this acronym. And we're going to go ahead and zoom in on this acronym so everybody knows what we're looking at here.
And before you do, I think that just kind of relates to John Music's $10 super chat. I mean, he's getting out there. He's ready to talk about aliens, non-human. But you have like Avril Lavigne saying Avril Haines saying extraterrestrially, but now it's objects in the sky and not UAP. So it's very mixed.
No transmedium, no underwater submersible, nothing. Very restricted to just airborne objects in restricted airspace. I think that's a big complaint.
That almost sounds like a virus. Like that almost sounds like a cold or something. Yeah. Oh, and also I don't know if you saw that, Jazz. I'm gonna mess it up, but Jean
Charlebois.
Charlebois.
Jean-Francois Charlebois says, "Cheers, Jazz." How do I send you a bottle of gin? No, we'll get to it. Yeah, no, we'll get to it so we can properly
okay,
do that.
just to make
but
sure
real
we
quick,
don't miss that.
I wanna just go over these acronyms because it's like I think the reason why you go with an acronym this ridiculous is because it's going to sound ridiculous coming out of a journalist's mouth, say on CNN or some sort of mainstream media outlet. And they're just going to be like, what? No, I'm not saying that. Wrong. I'm not talking about it. And they might just skip over this story. So accordingly, I direct the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, USD INS, to establish the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, AOIMSG, to synchronize efforts across the department and with other federal departments and agencies to detect, identify, and attribute objects of interest to SUA and to assess and as appropriate mitigate any associated threats to safety of flight and national security. Here's where it gets really fun. Is I established the Airborne Object Identification and Management Executive Council, AOIMEXEC, and the USDIS will be the lead DoD official responsible for management of this process and will co-chair the AIOMEXEX along with the Director of Operations Joint Staff and will invite principal level participation from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
That's the point where I sent the note to Susan Goff when I said this actually means messing with Kirsten Gillibrand, right?
Yeah.
You know, but I'm glad I did it because, like I said, I think when I sent her that and I said I was trying to keep a sense of humor for everyone, I got a little extra nugget in return when I asked her about it.
You did.
You know? So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. By the way, here's the $69.99 donation, Jazz.
Wow.
So bottoms up for you, sir. Truly
thank you for your contributions to the cause. These people are doing God's work. Everybody else, get out there. Cheers, sir.
Thank you. All right. So let's get into real quick another $5 dono from Makashi Chris. Thank you, my lady. If both offices pass and can exist, can the ODNI filter the information from Congress without facing contempt? Can they filter info by complex processes? And this is something kind of what Britt Inference was saying in actually a thread with you, Daniel Miller. And it was this idea of, you know, there will never be actual transparency because it's impossible. It's impossible to do it. And I can understand from some levels from a national security, like you're going to run into programs where you're just like, no. And I don't care what law's there, you're not getting this part of the information. But with that said, there's got to be a way to filter, especially the older information, the unclassified stuff, the stuff that isn't being used in today's war game or warfare, just as long as it doesn't divulge the process. And I think that's really what the DoD and these national intelligence agencies are protecting. They're protecting the process, not so much in some cases the tech, but the process, how they got the information, how they circulate that information to their intelligence, all this gathering of data, how that stuff is really what they're protecting, and giving even sometimes the simplest piece of the puzzle can expose a lot of those programs. So does anybody want to tackle this question here real quick?
Well, if nobody else wants to go, I partly disagree with Luis.
Okay, why?
The fact is that the government has oversight. All right, the elected government has oversight. They have the right to ask questions. There are a lot of people who don't have the right to get answers if they don't have deep enough access. But the Gang of Eight and the president, in theory, have the ability to ask pretty much any questions they want. This has been long established. The problem, and Luis Elizondo has spoken about this at length, is that you don't have the ability to get the information unless you know what questions to ask. And if you don't know that a program exists, you can't go and say, give me the details about your thing with the mega duck, and they're going to look at you and go, what? But if you can go and say, oh, program number XYZ 4273 by this name and things you were inspecting and finding out about this, then yeah, they would have to give it to you. But it's been long, I will say at least strongly suspected, if not established. There's a lot of stuff going on in the military industrial complex in the deep chimneys that everybody in Congress, the president, everyone else, they no longer even know these things happen. And if you don't know the questions to ask, you can't make them answer them.
Right.
That's something that Lou Elizondo, so that early UFO Congress speech he gave that was really harrowing before he did the really big interview rounds, for a few years. That was something I remember vividly. He made clear. He said, well, first of all, like any videos, photos, whatever that are released are going to be edited. So there's going to be longer videos. Things are going to be, you're not going to see the full thing. And then something, how are his, I remember it vividly. I don't remember the wording he used, but basically they're not going to declassify anything that's not requested to be declassified.
Right.
So you have to do a John Greenwald. You have to pull, the FOIA requests, I guess. But how are you going to know about the top secret project during Roswell or Phoenix Lights if you weren't part of it? And if you were part of it, you're not going to request it to be declassified in theory.
That's what
right?
John complains about all the time. It's like you can't ask questions unless you know what to ask. You need a name of a person, of a program, of an event, of a date, of a time. You can't just go, and Luis and I recently did a show with Ryan Sprague, and that subject came up. It's you can't just be the guy that's like, oh, I've got a Freedom of Information Act request here. Show me all the alien shit. That doesn't work. You have to have details and ask questions that are structured in a way that you force them to go, okay, we've searched for all of these keywords in these areas with these people, and here's what we found. If you just go, who killed JFK? You're going to get an answer that basically says, go away, kid.
Right. No matter what office is asking for it. So I mean, but I think it's safe to assume though that, again, and this is all assuming that this NDA passes and the amendment passes as worded. But I seriously doubt that's how they're going to be requesting things. So, but I am curious to know what happens when they hit that wall of secrecy, asking for it in the proper way with the proper verbiage. What kind of pushback they're going to get, and will that pushback ultimately supersede the NDA? I know that sounds crazy, but there's like people believe that. People believe if the government wants to hide something, they're going to hide it no matter what. I mean, we know that this bill has teeth. This amendment has teeth. But do you think it could run into a wall like that where it will not be released no matter how specific they get?
You asking me?
Yeah, you're on screen. Go for it. Or anybody else who may want to try and answer that.
Those
I
files don't
think
exist. That's what they'll say.
no,
right?
I think your question is totally valid. But again, it goes back to what I just said. You can't just go out and say, "Show me the aliens." You have to
Right.
say, "We want to see the contents of this freezer over at Bay 8 at Wright-Patterson, and show us what's inside of there." And you need somebody who has some inkling of knowledge about, what they actually have before you can force them into it. It gets really sticky beyond that. We don't have a system where we can just say, "We're unhappy. You've been too secretive. Tell us all your secrets." It doesn't work. It doesn't legally work that way.
Yeah.
Am I right
It
in
just doesn't.
thinking there's been some language, I'm not sure if it's in the NDAA, but somewhere about addressing overclassification of things?
No, I've addressed that.
That was addressed in a
Personally.
separate thing in just regards to things in the Space Force. But sorry, it's getting really dark here. I gotta get away.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think you're right, Dan.
Specifics to UAP.
No, it wasn't to do with UAP, but it was just a kind of a general thing.
Oh yeah, we have a
reading. I've wondered,
massive
hey,
overclassification
maybe
problem.
somewhere in
Massive.
there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get real quick to what Lou Elizondo tweeted today, and sort of, I guess it seems to like these are his official worries. I got to step out for a sec, Jess?
Take me out for a minute. We just got the next call in.
You got it, bud.
Of course.
All right. Okay, so this is where it gets a little interesting. So the first thing he did is a multi-level tweet, although he didn't put it in the same thread, which I'm wondering if is it kind of like me where I didn't know how to really start a thread for a long time, but he put this in like 4 or 5 separate tweets. But so the first thing he puts is important update. Before anyone gets too excited about the recent Pentagon announcement of a new UAP group, please consider the following. A, USDI is precisely the same organization that has underplayed and tried to kill the UAP effort for years. And then the second one, and then he says 2B, USDI is an oversight organization and non-operational. C, nowhere is there a requirement to provide unclassified findings to Congress or work out with our international partners. And then he finishes it up in 2 more tweets. Given that the elements still exist in the Pentagon who are actively underplaying the significance of this topic, this is akin to giving an alcoholic the key and control of the liquor cabinet. If you want to maintain UAP UFO secrecy, this is exactly how to do it. 5, this is a direct and blatant attempt to circumvent and undermine the Senate. Senator Gillibrand, Rubio, Gallego, Heinrich, and Timberjet, and others. So basically, I mean, my takeaway from that is, we can't trust this office. We can't, but how do we? I don't know. I mean, the only thing that we can do, and I think we did a damn good job of that today, is letting our representatives know and make them aware 100% of this side of what's going on, so they know what to look for. I guess maybe when they do, because I know that Gallego and Gillibrand have been speaking, and I think there's more changes to this amendment coming, where maybe some of Gallego's thoughts are going to be implemented on this, because he sees the political train leaving the station and he wants to be on board before it's fully in motion. And you can see that politically happening right now. But I mean, what do you guys think of Elizondo's statement here?
He knows something we don't know. I mean, that's all. Go ahead, Dan. I mean,
I was just going to say, he made me think of the fact the IG investigation is still ongoing. And I don't know if you kind of follow tech news or anything, but over the summer, maybe it was longer ago, but Apple got into a whole thing with Fortnite about Fortnite charging money through their app, and Apple wanted Epic, the guys that make Fortnite, to use Apple's way of charging them so that Apple could get their cut. And basically that caused a whole court case. And before the court case, Apple kind of brought out this language that was really the bare minimum they could have done, but meant they could technically stand in that courtroom and go, see, we did it. And you guys didn't have to do anything. Like, why are we even here? This is silly, and kind of just played it down.
Right.
And the case didn't kind of go the way anyone really expected. And now that same kind of thing is being applied with sideloading or putting your own apps onto your iPhone and the App Store. And this really feels like that to me. The Office itself might be genuine. It's a response to that 25th of June memo. It might be genuine, but the timing is a little disingenuous.
Yeah, for sure. Jazz, we were just talking about Lou Elizondo's comments on Twitter here and sort of his.
Yeah, I was listening to the whole thing.
So, any thoughts on what he had to say?
Yeah, I gave a lot of thought to this, and I didn't even get to send it to you guys in the private chat. There's going to be one defining factor, in my opinion, going forward as to how we evaluate this. If you see Gallegos and Gillibrand turn around after the break for the holiday, coming back and going, oh, okay, well, you've got this all handled then, and then they walk away, then it was all a whitewash. It was all crap. Because what particularly Gillibrand is asking for is so far above and beyond this, and saying how important it was, and so many other factors. If she turns around and walks away, then either it was crap from the beginning or somebody got to her. And if they let them get away with this. But if they turn around and go, well, no, you can set up your little unfunded office, that's fine, and look at the secured aerial spaces, but you're still going to set up our office and do these things, then we'll know it was real. That's what I'm asking everybody to keep your eyes on. It's what do they do? What do those two people in particular do? Because if they both back off and go, oh, we no longer need these amendments or these sections in the bill, well, then it was all a crap show. But if they stick with what they're doing, and particularly Gillibrand seems to be really sincere about it, and they're like, you can have your little office if you want over there, but you're going to have our office or we're going to bust your asses. If they do that, then I think it's real. So I would still encourage everybody to do what Luis was saying. Get out there, talk to your members, talk to your representatives, tell them, no, that's not good enough. We want the Gillibrand Amendment. And if we get that, then we're still in the same place we were before. This was just some people working in conjunction with Susan Goff that were like, maybe we can make this all just go away, and if it doesn't work, then we win. If it does work, they were never on our side in the first place. That's my take.
Wow. No, that's interesting. I wonder, I'm sure the political fallout wouldn't be huge, but I can guarantee you she would not have a lot of nice Twitter responses in her inbox. That's
absolutely.
For sure. She would it would be an about face on, and we went over this, I think yesterday, over Senator Gillibrand's, over her Twitter profile. And the tweet she had citing Popular Mechanics, was it? What
it's one of those, yeah.
It wasn't Popular Mechanics. It was a different article that wrote a piece about her. And basically her first quotes after Politico, it was Politico. Her first quotes after she proposed the amendment. And she got more likes, more retweets by 20 on most of her other posts. It is hands down the most even right now, it's the most popular thing she's talked about for at least a month when it comes to her social media stamp. So it would, that would shock me. I think that would shock me if she came back from Thanksgiving and said, yeah, you know what? the DOD has decided that has asked me to hold their beer, and they've got this taken care of. And so I'm going to hold their beer and let the DOD take care of this and the Pentagon take care of this, because clearly they can handle this. They've got the outreach, and it also makes be politically safe, because then I haven't wasted money on an investigation for UFOs that could be used against me maybe sometime down the road, which I don't think. I think we're far past those days, but I would be shocked. I mean, what do you guys think? Would you be shocked if something like that happened?
I don't see it. I mean, I have personally, I have called hers and Schumer's office so many times. They're probably going to block my phone number pretty soon, you know. But no, I don't see that happening. I think she's recognized not only how popular it is, but more importantly, we sound cynical when we say that. She's on the committees that have seen all of the classified briefings. I think she really believes this. She's worried about the members of the armed services who have been physically affected, had physiological effects from having encounters with UAP, with, dangers that have been presented, aerial dangers, all sorts of dangers. I think maybe I'm a sucker, but I think she's really sincere about it. And if she turns around and goes, "Oh, you got this," well, then okay, we got jerked off by another politician. But I don't think that's the case, really. I don't
forget,
see it.
Sorry to interrupt, Jazz. Don't forget, 4 other senators have signed on to that bill, supporting it. And so if she turns around, she's
from
also
both
leaving
parties.
From both parties, parties. Very bipartisan. So she's leaving those senators in the lurch too. If all of a sudden,
and you've got members of Congress who also support the bill as well.
Yes, yes.
So, Dan, what do you think? Would you be shocked if that happens, Zig?
I'd be very shocked. The UAP language in the NDAA now is really basic. And keeping it relative again, it's still better than we had 3 years ago. It's really basic language, but the fact that Gillibrand went and did not 1 amendment, not 2 amendment, not 3 amendments, but 4 amendments, and gathered co-sponsors. She went along at each step and she changed the language. This isn't someone that just thought, oh yeah, I'll ask for the most I can get, and whatever they give me, I'll be happy with. She has a very good idea what she wants, and all those people are supporting her specifically for those things. When I put out those documents showing the differences between the 2 bills, it's because you can really see that they're drilling down in this and really thinking about it. I don't think they would be satisfied by this at all.
Yeah.
Gillibrand, by the way, has family members who are actively now in the military, and other older ones who used to be in the military. And as a veteran myself, she works with veterans groups a lot. She's one of my senators in my state. And I don't agree with her on every subject that comes up and down the line, but she has been so good for the military. She has been so good for sexual abuse of females in the military, trying to get things like that done. She really works to take care of the military. And if UAP or something that are harming people in the military, I don't doubt her for a second. That's something she cares about.
Well, that's an interesting point you raise up, Jazz, because I didn't know she was that involved in the sort of the inner workings and making sure that justice is served within this military apparatus. But I think you're right. If she, especially because she's got skin in the game with having children in the military, if there are things that are hurting military personnel, and that's what she's getting briefed on within these confidential, classified briefings, then I could see her. It makes sense now why that physiological effects is the first thing they talk about in the bill. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. I like that point of view.
Do you remember the tail hook scandal, Luis?
Remind me.
All the women in the Air Force and Naval academies who said they had been sexually abused when they were going through the academy, and they were basically blacklisted if they talked about it, and it became what was known as the tail hook scandal. Gillibrand was one of the first people, as soon as she got elected to the Senate, that was out there dragging down the tail hook scandal and saying that there are women that are going through alongside men and they're being sexually abused, and if they talk about it, then they get washed out. And she brought that to light. I mean, she was one of the champions of that. And that had nothing to do with UFOs or anything, but it was just like women being abused.
It shows that she cares
in the military.
She cares about the humans.
military members and veterans, and particularly women, but everybody really.
Right.
And I think she's very earnest about that.
G West with a $10 donation says, I think this was Lou's major assault. I think him and Mellon were in DC last week to try and stop this. That is why they were so supportive of Gillibrand's amendment. They helped her write it, in my opinion. We've shared that opinion here on the show too. Like, we think that the Gillibrand amendment, you could literally pull word for word from parts of Christopher Mellon's blog posts. It seems like he definitely had a hand, or at least some influence in the verbiage of that bill. So totally agree with you there. Jazz, I'm going to bring up this last tweet. And this is interesting because this is actually not a tweet, an email. This is an old email between you and Susan Goff trying to get the pronunciation of her name. So that way, when we talk about her, we're pronouncing her name correctly. And it is indeed Goff. This is the email that proves it. But that's not the important part of this email. The important part is her title when she wrote this versus what her title is today.
Nobody's talking about this yet.
Yeah, so this is very cool, and this is something that Jazz brought to my attention. So, Jazz, tell us, why is this a point of importance or interest?
Well, bring that back up.
Yep.
I've been dealing with her for several years. That was always her title, Defense Public Affairs Operations. Now, let's go look at the most recent email, if you still have that up there.
Yeah, I can grab it here in a second. There we go.
And that title, by the way, was valid very recently.
Yeah. All
Defense
right, so this is
Public Affairs. Now look at the last email I got.
Sorry, there you go. I'm whipping it up right now. Sorry, guys. Give me a second.
Department of Defense spokesperson. This is a new title.
It's quite
this
change.
Only cropped up recently, and that's a very different thing. So earlier, I was saying to everybody, I understand what the argument she's making is, and there are things to say. But all of a sudden, and I think I described this to Luis earlier, and to Michael, although he's not on here. I converse with her a lot, and that was always her title. And now, and when I had questions about UAP stuff, I just sent them directly to Susan Goff, and she always answered me. Right now, I sent that request to an entirely different part of the Defense Department. They turned around, took my question, sent it to her, and she was the one who answered me. And that was her title now. Susan Goff has been moved up the ladder quite a bit. So take from that what you will, but she is now the spokesperson for the Department of Defense.
What is
the whole
the whole enchilada? So what is the biggest, if you can explain to the layman, and really just to me as well, what's the biggest difference in these titles? Why is this a major promotion in your eyes?
It's probably not a promotion in terms of pay scale or your career
power,
but before if you had something specific for that portion of defense that dealt with UAP, all those questions went to her. Now it's the Department of Defense. That's the entire military. And if you send a question, as I did, to an entirely different area, national intelligence, and they don't answer me like they used to, if the question has something to do with UAP, apparently anything, they turn around and I get an answer back that says, we're redirecting this. And I get a response because they turned it around and sent it to Susan Goff. She is answering all of the questions for the entire Department of Defense, for the entire military, anything to do with UAP. Nobody gets to answer a question except for her. Stop and think about that.
Do you have any idea when that change was made?
No, it was after June of this year, but we haven't been in constant contact over the summer. There wasn't a lot going on. I sent her a few questions, didn't get answered. Last time we were in regular contact was in the spring.
Who would you ask to explain that? Would it be her that you would have to ask?
Yeah, Dan. That's who you'd ask. And you know what answer you would get? Look at the last email that Luis showed you.
Yeah.
That's the answer you'd get. We have no comment on that.
So spokespeople are really good at not speaking, it sounds like.
Oh, that's for sure.
Sometimes.
And because you said after June, so I guess after the big UAP report, if the theme of tonight is suspicious timing, I mean, I think the timeline, I think if we just need to do a timeline from December 2017. I know people have done it, and just everything that happened, because again, to play devil's advocate a little bit, people are, this memo, the timing of it is so suspicious. But if you think about everything has been suspicious, in my opinion, about, Robert Bigelow goes in 60 Minutes, maybe aliens are real. Then later we found out he really did. He had a contract with the Pentagon. So it's just one thing after the other. It just keeps culminating. It's when is it okay to be suspicious of timing and when isn't? Just depending on who's involved and how much we trust them or not.
I don't think anybody's crazy about being suspicious. I mean, as recently
I am totally the person that's like that. That's like, this is.
I could send stuff to DNI.
Whoa, trash can.
Back in recently as August, I could send stuff to DNI, and I would get a direct answer from them. But I was asking about things like Afghanistan, and totally different areas, and they would just immediately answer you, right? And now all of a sudden, I sent that question to the same office, and they didn't answer it. They took my question, and they forwarded it to Susan Goff, and she answered me. And so I had my next endless series of conversations with Susan Goff, which I've been having since 2018, but I was used to getting answered by them, by that office. But now they're not answering the questions. They have apparently been told, and we've had, Luis has had John Greenwald on here, and he will tell you, there's a lot of collaboration that goes on about who says what, who answers who, things like that, and there was a time you could ask DNI questions and they would just answer you. You're a journalist, you ask questions, you get an answer. And you probably still would today. But if you ask about UAP today, you don't get an answer. They send it over to Susan Goff and she has to answer you. She's the only person that's allowed to talk to the media about UAP. Think about that. I'm not saying we have a smoking gun. I'm just saying everybody listening to this show, she has expanded her net out to the point where if you send a question to virtually anywhere in the United States government about UAP, nobody answers. They send them over to Susan Goff, and she's the one who answers you. It's a full-time job for her, and there's a reason for that.
Well, what do you think those reasons are? I mean, I know she's very good with information and how it's disseminated. That's sort of her forte. But what are the pros and cons of Susan Goff being the only one being able to answer questions on UAP?
Haven't we discussed this on the show before? She's the author of a book that's still in use
right
to this day in the military about disinformation, about controlling information flow. She's not a secretary. She's not an aviator. She's a person who spent her entire career dealing in how to control the flow of information. That's why she was given this job. That job previously only applied to the UAP task force, and the things closely associated with that. This week, when I went to an entirely different section of the government, they kicked the question over to her. Why? I can't tell you. I will leave that up to you, the listener, the viewer. Why did that happen? Why is she now answering everybody's questions that have anything to do with this subject? I don't know the answer. I don't claim I know, but I'll tell you, it doesn't smell good.
What do you think? Spaghetti Lee says here that it's to control the leaks.
Well, yeah.
That'd be a good way to do it. Put her there. Do you know if that's something that you could FOIA when that title changed?
I asked John Greenwald about that earlier today. He's working on it. I don't know yet.
Okay.
Of course he
by
is.
the way, yeah, of course he is. I've asked John Greenwald. I also asked Lou Lozano to see if they could be here today and provide their points of view. So hopefully here in the next 30 minutes they can hop in and sort of and add their 2 cents if they've got the time. But as you can imagine, both of those men are probably very busy right now.
Everybody is today.
Yeah.
Isn't this crazy? It's like this is the week that's supposed to be like dead for news.
Right.
Nobody's we should have been here talking about like best turkey recipes.
Well, I wasn't supposed to be here at all. So this is supposed to be my day off.
Yeah, mine too, dude.
Yeah.
But I told you I'd do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. The timing seems coincidental, but I don't know. I don't have any answers for you. I can't professionally go and say, well, there's a smoking gun here, but it certainly looks kind of weird.
Yeah, it looks weird. Go ahead, Dan.
I was saying Greenwald. I mean, he has those FOIA emails that show where I forgot which office specifically they were emailing, but saying if anything UAP related comes across your desk, you have to forward it to Goff now.
Yep.
Like that's there in black and white. So yeah, it's and it's unlike any other topic. It just goes against the MO of any other topic. It's very weird and terrible.
But it's expanded now, Daniel. I mean, I know the one you're talking about. Previously, we were all running into that brick wall and slamming our heads into it. And it's like everything has to go through her. But now we're going to entirely different agencies, which didn't used to be the case.
I see.
And they're sending journalists questions like, sorry, can't help, send it over to her. It's really expanding. So I'm concerned about this.
Yeah, it sounds like we may not be getting the answers we are looking for from the national security apparatus. I was saying DOD, but DNI is not even the DOD. So, jeez,
it's wider than that. Yeah. It's the entire intelligence / military apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Jazz, do you think that this new position for Susan Goff, would this cause issues for the new Astro office if put into law? Or could it? No. Okay.
No, if an office is established by the Senate, well, it depends who you put in there, obviously. But, everything she's been handling is stuff that Congress takes very little interest in aside from approving their budget, and they do whatever the hell they want to do. What Gillibrand is talking about is a new office where you will respond to the Congress. We've never had that before. So if we get that, that's going to be a whole new world. We're going to be in unbroken ground, but we don't have anything like that today. I mean, that doesn't exist today. All we have is journalists who get a list of names that you can email and go, hey, I have questions about what the military is doing. Can you tell me something? And you get an answer, or you don't. And the answer may be great, or it might be, that sounds kind of dodgy, But no, Gillibrand is talking about something entirely different. And this is not reporting that I have for you. It's just an opinion.
Right.
These people are panicking at this point. I really think they are in a panic at this point that Congress, the people who control their budgets, are going to come along and go, and the language in the Gillibrand Amendment, it's not, we would like to know, it's you will provide. And there's a lot of people, I think, that are just crapping bricks right now. That's just my take.
Anybody, Dan, Zetterstom, Miller, Jane, any thoughts on what Jazz just said? I just want to open it up to you guys just in case.
First,
But
Zig. If you have
I'm
anything to
just
say.
gonna say I agree. Jazz seems fired up. I can see that he's holding his tongue a little bit, but
I
feel
am.
the passion there.
yeah, no, it definitely seems like. But what do you say about this sediment? And Artisan Tony kind of has this sediment, and I'm looking for it. Tony, sorry, give me a second. But it's essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, so forgive me. I'm sorry, I can't find the comment, but basically that.
Was it this one?
Yes, you guys really think our government could create a government office and gain control over these entities? I don't look. I don't know if they could. They definitely can't gain control
Is that
over
the goal of the office?
entities,
To gain
but I don't think
control
that's the
over the
goal. Yeah,
aliens?
Entities, as in the things we
the
can't
phenomenon.
identify, or the
Yes.
office? Oh,
yes.
yeah.
I no, of course
I
not.
really
but
don't know what he
nobody's
means by the
yeah,
identity.
nobody said that. But I think
That's
it's
the
more
job
of
I want.
no. I would
Give
love
me
that
control over the entities. Do
That's the
you
office
have
job
like
when you ride
technology
dolphins,
that
yeah.
can like just give me an instant martini maker? I'll just take that.
yeah.
Fine, whatever.
Well, how about the idea of just creating a government office that can actually release information? Let's, instead of saying entities, like let's say an office that we create, the Astro office is created, it's put into law. Will this actually lead to any substantive, groundbreaking, paradigm shifting news or discoveries that really get the entire planet thinking and talking on a whole new level? Like, because how long do we give? I mean, this is a crazy question, but how long do we give this office? How long do we give them before we see results? And what kind of results do we expect to see? Because I think the craft and the bodies, if it comes, it's not coming for a very long time. But I think technology, possibly how it's formulated and how it works in some realm without giving you all of the intricacies and secrets of it, I think that's kind of where we're going. I think the idea of establishing for the American people, shout out to Jamarl Thomas, that there is a there, that these objects are real. There are laws now being written. We have an office that's looking at it, that's in conjunction with our best scientists, and we're trying to come up with answers. We're not trying to gain control over anything or anyone, because that's not the purpose of the office. But do you think the office could extract something on that level? Dan, I'll start with you. Yeah, or Miller, not Miller, Zetterstom. Sorry, damn it.
I think the office could potentially. So the big thing that's missing for me from the proposal here, I'm going to call it OIMSG office, is there's no public outreach. There's no education about this. There's no actual conversation being had. It's, hey, we're going to do the work and we're going to do it in this room. And yeah, we promise we're going to do it properly, then you'll never know. Whereas with the Gillibrand amendment, there's a lot built in there that kind of feeds into the public conversation. So I think it would be less like what the public statements we see from the DoD and more like the public statements we see from somewhere like NASA, where their aim is to inspire people and get people involved and figure out this mystery. It's not about keeping this mystery for themselves.
Jane, what do you think?
What was the question specifically?
So the question is, do you think this office will reveal something paradigm shifting? Like, how long do you give this office before, length of time? I mean, I think we have to give them at least 2 years. 2 years from next June is what I mean, because I think for me, it's the only way for first of all, the office has to be established by June 24th of 2022. Again, assuming this stuff gets passed into law. And then, they've got till the end of the year. Maybe we get one classified report to Congress. And then the next year, or not a classified report. I think what happens between June 24th and the end of 2023 or 2022 is you'll get this new office, this new Astro office, going to these different departments and seeing what kind of responses they get to the requests that they have, and then determining, okay, is this office cooperating? Is it not cooperating? How does this affect their budget for the NDAA? There's a lot of stuff in here, but I guess what do you expect? How long do you give it?
I think Christmas. I think December's like seems to be a time for like UFO disclosures. So I mean, we're not going to. I don't know what we'll get this December, if it'll be a Jeremy Corbell leak, and then
this year
comment, right?
Yeah,
but so
this
December
year
2022, right, is when I would maybe expect, right? So I would think some stuff's gonna culminate with the goal of 2023 going into 2023. I think we're gonna have, whether it's the longer videos, we're going to have new things to talk about. I'm certain of it. I don't think all of these people are betting on this and putting their chips in the game, including the director, including so much so that there's competition to create an office around it, if there's not an expectation that there will be some major disclosures, and everybody seems to want to be the one to disclose it. So I don't know what Senator Gillibrand knows or what the director of national intelligence knows, but everybody seems to know something big is coming. So I would expect it's going to come. Where it comes from, I don't know.
Right. No, I pretty much agree with that statement. Miller, what do you think?
Yeah, I say to the cynics out there who say, we'll never get anything from the government, there's no point to all this. I say nothing ventured, nothing gained. Like maybe you're right, but we should try. And I will say I'm very optimistic with what's going on, that if Gillibrand's proposal passes, I foresee definitely some more information coming out. I agree with you. I don't know if we'll ever have a disclosure in terms of any information that might be national security sensitive to national security or could help out our adversaries. But I think something that no one's really mentioned yet is that if we can just get to this point where the government has said, yeah, there's not just a there, but there is actually something that we have enough data now to show is moving in ways that we literally cannot account for. If you can just get a little more solidified on the anomalous nature of these things, then it doesn't matter what the government says anymore, because if you can say without a doubt something truly strange is happening, do you not think the rest of the world is going to try to start figuring out what the heck is going on? Academia around the world, science. I mean, we don't need to hear what the government, I mean, it'd be helpful, more information the better, but I think people don't realize that right now we are such a small minority of people in the country, in the world, that are interested in this topic. But if you really make it clear to people that, hey, there's something real weird going on, and you have the government, you have a congressionally mandated report saying so. We had one ODNI report, and now Harvard is involved. I can only imagine what would happen if we continue down this ball. So, I mean, at a certain point, we really don't need the government to do anything. The private sector and academia will absolutely invest obscene amounts of money into this, in my opinion.
Well, this brings sort of a question, Job Music. Sorry if we didn't get that initial super chat question correct, but he's asking, what would it take to make the word non-human used? And do you guys think that this would blow this discussion wide open?
In my opinion, they will never use that word unless they're landing on the White House lawn. I mean,
they might eventually use it, but that would be a post. I mean, that would be a post-disclosure world. That'd be a UFO Jesus world, right? Which I think is coming. But that's like
it already happened.
The next horizon, right? Well, right, extraterrestrially.
It wasn't just extraterrestrially. The DNI said aliens.
Right.
We've had people. Kirsten Gillibrand said it. That's not the problem. you know,
right. I guess does it mean how they're describing it, or as a possibility? I guess is
they're
music,
saying
John
as a
Music, what I'd ask.
possibility.
It's a
If you're
possibility.
saying, oh, we definitely
For
have
sure,
this
non-human. Yeah, that's what I assumed.
Got it.
That
Sorry.
Miller meant.
you know,
Like,
no,
for sure.
that's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion.
Well,
But
there is. How about the idea of extraterrestrially or non-human entities being written into a bill? Do you foresee that happening? Because I think that could definitely change the conversation in a lot of ways. But I have a hard time seeing that happen within the next decade.
I think there's just gonna be a lot of jokes because it used to be jokes about UFOs.
Right.
Aliens didn't really bring up. It was obviously there weren't aliens. But, you joked about UFOs, and now the UFOs are serious, and all the jokes are about aliens, right? So it'll be a lot of joking for a while. But I do think that we're going to get to non-human. But I agree with Miller, though, in the sense that, right, there's multiple audiences, and we think about the timing, right? And you can't give away too much too soon. You want to keep UFO Twitter happy, but you don't want to panic the masses, right? So when you throw non-human out there in a certain way, that would be panicking the masses, right? Potentially. So I think they're gonna wait. I mean, that's when we're talking craft and bodies, right? I do think that we will get there eventually. But I don't have my crystal ball with me.
We're already talking craft, right? But I don't think we're at the point where anybody is going to be saying those other words. Luis and I were talking last week when I predicted that somebody was going to say the word aliens, and they did, but it was said as well, we don't have any other good answers, so this is something that should be on the table. When do we get to the point where somebody says, oh, these are definitely extraterrestrials, or we have some stuff? I'm sorry, only opinion. I don't think we're anywhere near that. And I'm not saying I don't believe we don't have that. I'm just saying nobody's close to saying it right now. Just my take.
Go for it, Dan. Zig.
We're
Danny
also
boy.
at a point where kind of our idea of life and what life could be, or life as we know it, is changing rapidly. So that term there, non-human, what it means to us right now, in 3 years, we could be thinking of, I don't know, because with non-human, we think of non-human intelligence, and we could think of dogs or, cats in that way.
That's such a good point.
Suddenly we could just start thinking of them
or
in that
dolphin,
way.
Jazz?
Right.
Yeah, dolphin.
Absolutely dolphin.
I was going to say octopus, but I didn't want to start an argument over the plural.
Oh boy, octopus.
Octopuses.
Yeah.
Octopodes, if you want to be a nerd about it.
Oh, there you go. No, I mean, like, I agree with you guys 100%. I think we are witnessing the start of something that's going to be way, way bigger in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road. I know that's a frustrating thing for some people to hear, but it's like
It's
we're
gonna be
literally
fun, though.
I think it's going to be a blast. I think the process is going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of things to talk about. I think there's going to be leaks. There's going to be videos. There's going to be congressmen saying stuff.
It's not going to be boring.
We were talking about, and this is something actually I was talking to Bob Pliskin about, and he was saying this idea of, information sometimes can be disseminated, even if it is classified, depending on what your rank is. It happens. Like if you're a powerful senator or if you're a powerful general and you decide one day you want to talk about this, I don't think you're going to go to jail and talk about it in a substantive way, especially if laws have been written, offices have been set. There's news coming down that these things are in fact, there is a there. Like, I don't think parts of this are going to be unclassified without going through a process, and it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about, and we're going to do stuff like this every time it happens. And also, you got to remember
I'm sorry, I hit the wall, guys.
No, you've hit the wall. Jazz Shaw,
no,
before you get out of here,
I gotta
goodbye
go.
to everybody.
Oh, goodbye to everybody. Thank you. Just support all these guys. I really had a great time. Hope I provided a lot of good information.
I think we did.
I'm working on more stuff, and we have info coming in all the time. I'll be feeding it over to these guys, to Lou, to Michael, and just keep the fight going, guys.
I appreciate it,
really,
Jazz.
I got some
get out of here, sir. We love you. Thank you so much.
Going on, so
we know you do. All right, thanks for being here.
Love. Have a good one.
So I mean, we also have to keep in mind, and Jazz is awesome. Just quick shout out to Jazz Shaw. Every time he comes on the show, he's always so damn passionate about this, and his tireless work ethic to provide us with an hour and a half of what just happened. He's just a gem, and I can't thank him enough. And if you love his shirt, that's in our merch store. He supports everything through our merch. He's an A+ dude, and we love having him.
I'm going to tell you guys something that I haven't told anyone yet. The raffle that I'm doing, Jazz and his wife donated something. Can you guys remember the knitted alien autopsy?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they have donated one of those for the raffle.
Oh, how cool!
So I will be adding that soon. And I was over the moon when he offered it. It's such a kind gesture. So I just wanted to speak to how supportive Jazz is. He's fantastic.
You have no idea, guys, how much work behind the scenes he does to support not only this show but just the conversation. He goes on countless radio shows that people have no clue. Like, you have no idea how many radio shows this guy does, and he always prefaces with, "You want me to do this interview? I want to talk about UAP for at least 5 minutes of it." Yeah. And they're like, "All right," So like, dude, he's a gem. We've got another guest that decided to join us here for the last 15 minutes, real quick. I just want to remind people, like, there is what Haley Massberg is saying here. Her focus is on Galileo right now. Not that this isn't important, but I think our best chance at some good info is with the Galileo team. And I agree. I think that private science is I think that's why we're seeing the movement we're seeing, in part because I think the writing's all over the wall. The sky is not classified, and these systems are cheaper. Telescopes are cheaper. Ways to record these things is easier. And I think don't be shocked if a citizen beats the United States government to revealing this information to everybody. Don't be shocked if Avi Loeb and those guys get a crystal clear photo of one of these things that's got a whole bunch of math that could corroborate and maybe even get two different angles of it. Don't be shocked if these things happen. And so, I can't agree with you more, Haley. And then we also had, here real quick, we had a couple more donations before we bring on our final guest and friend. And I want to get this guy's perspective because I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun to listen to. We got Portator 33. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work. Thanks for all the jumping on to give us this insight. Make Jazz drink shots. Totally. Jazz already had one shot. He usually doesn't do them for anything less than $50. But I'm sure in spirit he's probably doing one, because honestly, let's be real here. There's no drink Jazz is afraid of, any excuse, and I'm sure he'll do it. Brian, Massachusetts, with a $5 donation. Thanks for all the hard work. #UFO Twitter. Today was fun. It was fun. Like, this was fun, man. And let's bring on Franc Milburn, because we got about 15 minutes here, Frank, and I want to get your thoughts on the day's events. I mean, today was a really fun day. We've learned that UFO Twitter is not to be messed with. We galvanized, we organized, we reached out to our local state representatives. I think we made a genuine difference. Here's the one thing that I really, truly enjoyed about today is that if this happened 2 years ago, people would have said, make sure to call your reps. And it would have been a one-off and it wouldn't have been very inspiring. Maybe a couple of people would have done it. Whereas today, everybody was yelling, call your reps, call your reps, call your reps. We were telling people internationally, hey, this is how you reach out to our representatives. You can tweet at them. If you're an international resident, you don't have to be left out of this conversation from the U.S. perspective. You could tweet at our representatives. And trust me when I tell you, it's influential. The more likes, the more retweets, the more thank yous that they get on this topic when they do something positive for the community is monumental, and it moves the ball downfield. But Franc Milburn, thank you for joining us last second here. How are you doing, sir?
Hey guys, great to meet all the people I haven't met already. Nice to be here.
Hi, Frank.
So
hi,
Frank,
guys.
What are your thoughts on today? If you can, just give us your breakdown.
Yeah, sure. I actually had a quick chat with Chris Mellon about it, who I managed to get hold of, who didn't seem so pleased, and I'll come back to it in a moment. My initial thoughts when I was going through the DoD press release was kind of deep suspicion, that I'm a deeply suspicious person. But the way that they were couching these changes, and I'm like, why are they talking about this now when Gillibrand amendment looks just around the corner? And the way that the memo was couching things in terms of, the report submitted to Congress in June. Okay, fair enough. But then why go through all the bureaucratic hassle of setting up, a new department, a different oversight system, when changes could be just around the corner? Because really, in a bureaucracy, nobody wants to make more work for themselves than necessary. And then when I looked at the memo from the Deputy Secretary of Defense, the deeply suspicious part of me came out when it said, yes, the USDI will co-chair the AOMEXEC thing with the Director of Operations Joint Staff. Now, the Director of Operations Joint Staff is a 3-star general who basically coordinates between the President, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the DoD and component commands of DoD. And this is the key part when it says, will invite principal level participation from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Now, that's very different from the compulsion that was talked about in the Gillibrand amendment, whereas, you will share, and if you don't share information and intelligence, then you will need to report as to why you have not done so. Okay. And then if we go on to what actually Chris Mellon said in his recent post, he actually said, as a former staffer myself, I'm shocked that the DepSecDef would assign the UAP function to an oversight staff with no UAP funding, no line authority, contracting command, or technical capabilities. Indeed, the inability of USDI to engage effectively on the UAP issue is why so little has changed or been accomplished since 2004. Based on the back of that, I reached out to him and I asked him what he thought about it. And I said to him, hi, Chris, just read your latest post. What do you think is the motivation behind this new department and oversight group? I said, is DoD trying to mitigate the potential Gillibrand amendment and future oversight by Congress as envisaged in that proposed amendment? I said, what is DoD playing at? Is this bureaucratic resistance to greater change? And he just comes back and goes, yes, an attempt to preempt, outrageous. Okay. I think if we're talking about, the stovepiping, to me, this seems to be a clear example of where DoD is trying to basically control the narrative, and now they've got on board with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence as well. If we look back to the recent book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, okay, so you had ORSAP at reporting to Defense Intelligence Agency, which was interested in UAP. Now they went along and they tried to talk to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, Special Projects Division, who told them some things about, yes, we looked at northern tier UAP incursions, but if you guys want to know more, you're going to need to become like a special access program. And then also in the book, they were talking about, Homeland Security, which was reaching out to different parts of government and trying to get information on UAP. All this back in 2009, 2010, and getting stonewalled. So this to me just seems to be more of the same. And Jazz Shaw's excellent points, and also Daniel's excellent points that they brought out about the FOIA obfuscation earlier this year, and the fact that now Susan Goff is kind of the spokes point person for everything UAP related. And those deeply suspicious, emails saying, we need to control from the spokespeople at DoD, the public affairs officers, we have to control the UAP narrative. which seemed to me a way to circumvent what is the legal right, the constitutional right of the American people to have access to FOIA and to be able to put in these requests, not to have some bureaucrats trying to hold up the process. And this to me seems to be more of the same.
So it seems like this is not because when we spoke to Jazz, Susan Goff's new title is the spokesperson for the Department of Defense, which is the whole Department of Defense. She handles everything. She speaks for the Department of Defense, essentially. But the idea that this is an attempt to control the narrative, not the actual power of the Astro office or the senators or the Senate Intelligence Committees, because this has no jurisdiction over those things. But if they try to steal the narrative, I can see how that can undermine the new office that's trying to be built with this amendment, this Gillibrand amendment. Is that essentially what's happening here?
I believe so. There was that very good point that was made earlier that when I spoke to somebody, and also that I heard, from you guys, I was speaking to somebody on Clubhouse, and they said, "Oh, this is an attempt by DOD to effectively head off Congress at the pass, as it were." I don't think that they will succeed in that because the senators have got the bit between the teeth about this, and I think it's too important personally to Gillibrand. And from what we've heard about her tonight as well, she seems to be a deeply committed person, to the troops. But I think it's almost maybe like a last stand to try and keep this stovepiping and to keep the jurisdiction effectively for UAP out of the hands and away from Congress as much as they can. And I think it was a very good point made that they might be hoping, as in the DOD might be hoping that that senators will say, okay, that's fine. The DOD is taking care of business. We don't need to. But I think that would be quite dangerous if they did. And then it would just be more of the same, just as we saw in, the Skinwalkers at the Pentagon book, more of the same stovepiping, more of the same, 2004, Air Force officers appearing at the Nimitz strike group ships and aircraft and taking their hard drives. It would just be more of the same. I think there's another point that needs to be made as well, is why would you set up, the point was made, well, you could have this office that DOD are proposing just to look at, sensitive, military training areas. But you've got two principles of intelligence, right? One is centralized control and the other is economy of effort. So why would you want to have two sort of competing departments? Because then you wouldn't have economy of effort and you wouldn't have centralized control, which are two principles of intelligence.
Right. That's interesting. Well, could you answer that question the best you could? Why would you have two departments like that?
Well, you wouldn't, because it's just more of the same stupidity that you have with the.
It's basically to add confusion.
Exactly. It's like the point that Chris Mellon always makes about the FBI and the CIA not talking together, not talking to each other, pre 9/11, and they could have headed off, the dreadful events that happened if they'd been talking to each other, but they weren't sharing information. But that intelligence should have been centrally controlled, just like you have, now with Homeland Security, and you have all these various different, terrorism, committees that work together across all the American agencies precisely to deal with Homeland Security, counterterrorism, and also in the fields of counterintelligence. But you still don't have that in UAP, and it's a fundamental principle of intelligence. You have economy of effort and centralized control because you don't want to waste resources. It's like having two painters, and one comes along and paints the wall, and the other one's following him like 5 minutes after painting it before the first bit of paint has dried.
Right. Well, here's the thing that gives me hope is that every single news outlet that covered this story saw right through the Department of Defense and the BS that they're trying to pull. And so I think that's what gives me hope on this, is that this feels like a last-ditch effort to sort of bog down the system, cause confusion, steal narratives. But thankfully, it seems, and now this hasn't hit the mainstream media, I think, yet. I don't know if it does because it's too confusing to talk about in a 3-minute soundbite. I don't think they're going to get to it. But the media that does cover this story has not bit on this narrative that the Department of Defense is putting out. And so that's what gives me hope, is that we've got a whole galvanized section of people who are active and know what's happening and know who to contact and know who to ask and what to ask for and how to ask for it. And then we've got a beautiful media or organized media. And when I say the media that I'm talking about Tim McMillan, I'm talking about The Drive, I'm talking about the article in USA Today, and a couple of other publications. D.D. Johnson, by the way, we have not shouted him out. He's the man who's absolutely providing us with all of these updates and the skinny on what these updates mean. Because let's be honest, at least for me, I read over these things. I saw this last night and I had two thoughts. The first was, damn, I might have to do a show tomorrow if this gets crazy, which I think it's going to. And then the second thought was, I'm going to wait to see what I don't want to call them leaders, but what the forward thinkers on this topic are saying. So I want to know what Lou Elizondo thinks about it. I want to know what Christopher Mellon thinks about it. I want to know what Senator Gillibrand maybe thinks about it, and see how people react to this. And it was clear from the start that this was bogus. Like nobody fell for this BS. And so I'm hopeful in that regards. I'm going to sort of give that thought to you guys, and if anybody has a response, I guess that's where we'll kind of end the show today. But Jane, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, it sounds like we might have not one UFO office, but two UFO offices. So right. That's what I'm gonna focus on. I think and I'll just keep watching Twitter.
Right. Yeah, because Twitter is definitely where it's at right now.
In between eating turkey tomorrow.
So Jane, real quick, thank you so much for being a co-host today and coming in on your day off, because I gave everybody at the UCR team the day off, but she's obsessed with this just as much as I am. So I had a feeling you were going to be here. Before you get out of here, please tell us anything you're working on, where everybody can find your stuff. By the way, I'm going to have everybody who appeared today, I'm going to make sure their links are down below after the show. So if you want to go support the work, we'll have those links up for you in a couple of minutes. But please tell the people where they can patronize, not patronize, but support Jane.
Yeah, it was fun hanging out with everybody. Just search UFO Jane. And then for those in Texas, TexasUFOsightings.com. I'm regularly reporting on UFOs here in the Lone Star State, so I don't always mention that, but definitely let me know if you live in Texas and you've seen a UFO.
Will do. Yeah. Jane, Kyle, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy your holiday, and I'll see you, I think, Friday, right? Or no. Are you there Friday?
No, but next week I won't be with good internet reception.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. So we'll see you soon then. Sometime soon. Monday. Hopefully Monday. All right, Jane. We'll see you later, my lady. Ciao. Daniel Miller. Please tell everybody what you do every Tuesday, where they can support your stuff, and any closing remarks.
Yes, every Tuesday I'm right here on UCR with my show Known Quantities. Just yesterday we had a great episode with Campbell Moira, so if you haven't checked that out, I highly encourage you to do so. I thought we had a great conversation. Links are down below. I have a Patreon want to support, patreon.com/Daniel Miller. You can find me on Twitter, of course, at Psycop1, SICCOP1. Parting thoughts. I think, let's just wait and see what happens. I know there's quite a few on Twitter as well who think that this is all a bit conspiratorial and it's just the DOD doing its thing. And maybe they're right. It's not my opinion, but maybe they're right. So I guess I'm just looking forward to seeing what actually is in the NDAA. Hopefully that's soon.
Awesome, my man. All right. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, sticking around for the whole 2-hour show.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. See y'all
later. Frank Milburn. Thank you so much. Before you get out of here, I just want to address this real quick. Brian McDonald with a $5 donation. We should take extensive notes regarding tone and style from Christopher Mellon's letter released today. I'm sure you could speak to that, but I'll let you. The floor is open to you, sir.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And you made a great point about people like The Drive, Tim McMillan, Debrief. Picking up this story, but I think to have real traction, you need someone like the New York Times that would really get it. Talking about why has there been FOIA obfuscation? Is this just more of the same? If they opened up some kind of line of inquiry and investigation. That would be very interesting.
Well, I think we get New York Times. If the day this passes into law and gets signed by president, that's when mainstream media is gonna run with this big time. And I think that this today is going to be so far in the rearview mirror. Media's not even going to mention it, unless, of course, they release something around the same time to confuse and try to steal the narrative. But I think that this bill, once it gets signed, that's going to be the main narrative. I really, really do. It's going to be difficult to derail that train off the track. But before you get out of here, where can people find Franc Milburn?
Yeah, sure. At Franc Milburn on Twitter, just sort of where I post stuff mainly. I don't really do much Facebook these days. Okay. Thanks, guys, for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Next time I saw your Twitter message, so I'll definitely keep that in mind. Thank you. Danny Zetterstom. I left the best for last. You're muted. Yes, I got to say it. Yes. I was like, damn, he hasn't been muted once.
I just wanted to give that to you before I left.
I love it. My UAP crush, buddy, dude. Thanks so much for staying up late. I know it's late where you're at right now.
It's
but
okay. I mean, it's 2 a.m. I'd probably be checking the Senate stream or something right now normally. Yeah. So, it was great to be here. I met a few people that I haven't had much FaceTime with before. Yeah. So yeah, it was great. Thank you for inviting me. And like you said, this was a big day and one of those kind of, it feels like we're getting to one of these really special moments.
It felt like a win today, didn't it, for the community as a whole?
Everyone was kind of, and I'm going to hate my phrasing because it sounds like, blue sky thinking and synergy and blah, blah, blah. But everyone was on message, They
really were.
We also
really were.
We just saw it. We saw what they were trying to do. We called it. If we were the politicians, we'd have this done, but we're not. So we have to help get the politicians informed.
And I think they're starting to see it from a political perspective. They see how popular this is, how their Twitter feed blows up every time they talk about it, how the video gets shared every time they mention it. I think they see the political power in this. And if they're the first ones to the game with some actual substantive proof,
they go down in history.
And I think that's why you see all of these senators and congressmen just begging to be attached to this amendment, because they see it. They want to be part of the team that brought the first legitimate disclosure to the masses on an official level. I'm not undermining all of the experiencers or all of the research or all of the stories and events that have happened in the past. It's not what I'm trying to do, but this is different. We are actually acknowledging the existence. There is a there, and when they try to pull some bullshit, we were hopped all over it and called it out as quickly as possible. And I think that's a great place to be. And I think that's because we're really starting to unite as a community. Like, I didn't see any fighting today. I mean, I saw maybe one sort of like pushback on it, but it wasn't. It was just like everybody was on message, just like you said. And yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. So I appreciate you sharing this day with me. I think it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great fun. A nice moment to touch base.
Absolutely a moment I will cherish, not pleasure. I will cherish forever. So Dan, before you get out of here, please, the floor is yours, man. Tell everybody where they can support you, what you're working on, what you're doing with that UFO podcast and Andy, what you're talking about maybe this Friday. Are you guys also going live this Friday?
Yeah, we'll be live this Friday. We enjoyed our experience last week. It was a little bit different, so we'll be doing it again this Friday, following you up. It'll be the Dream Team 1-2. I'm not sure. Andy and I do a meeting to talk about kind of the themes and stuff that we want to talk about, but we'll probably see where it goes. But yeah, UAP Media UK and my colleagues over there at the moment, we're we've spent the week looking at universities around the UK, basically. And we're targeting departments that we think would be interested in the Galileo project and may not have heard about it. So we just kind of want to light that spark for them. Because like Dan Miller said, at a certain point, we no longer need government with this. And in the UK, the government aren't talking. So fine, sit in the corner and sulk. We'll go around you.
There you go. I mean, that's just going to be the attitude that I think this community is going to have going forward. So yeah, man, I appreciate you being here. Seriously, it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Thank you.
All right, my man. I'll talk to you soon.
As we say in Wales, Nostar. That means good night.
Nostar.
Nostar.
Thank you, man. All right, you guys. Wow, what a day. That was a lot of fun. We didn't get some guests that I was hoping to get. It's a holiday weekend, you know. This is sort of what happens when we have to put a last minute show together, but the guests that we had were phenomenal. They brought a lot to the table, a lot of great questions, a lot of great contemplating and thinking on this topic. I mean, we're winning. Today was a win, so take it as a win, and we move on to the next battle. This is, again, I said at the top of the show, we've poked the bear. We now got a response, and we know now that we can respond to those responses in one voice and stay on message and really help the people who've done all the legwork in this 2004 and beyond discussion. You know, the Lou Elizondos, the Christopher Mellons, the Ryan Graves, the Alex Dietrichs, the Jeremy McGowan's, the Sean Cahills, all of these veterans that have put their credibility, that have sacrificed their privacy in cases, Sean Cahill, to talk about this stuff, to fight for us, to tell us how to articulate ourselves. So when we do go to these people, we know how to ask for it, what to ask for. And it's now a razor blade, no longer a butter knife. So the Department of Defense, you're going to have to come up with better stuff than what you did today, because we see right through it, and it's not good enough. And we're going to be watching you like a hawk. We now know where to look. We now know where our attention needs to be, and we're hip to the game. So congratulations to all of you guys out there that help spread the word. If you want to continue to do so, of course, check out our website, thebigphonehome.com. If you haven't sent your template, if you haven't made a phone call, all of the tools are there to find your local and state representatives, to have a conversation with them on changing the dialogue on the topic of UAPs. It is a national security issue. Always remind them of that. But this is also an issue. This is a way for politicians to win trust, to gain popularity, to gain to kill stigma, and to gain trust. The more honest they are with UAP, the more trust they win as a politician. And I think that's a formula that Senator Gillibrand sees, Marco Rubio sees, even Lindsey Graham and Roy Blunt and Representative Rupert Gallego, they see it. They see it. And so congratulations to everyone out there. This was a win for the community. Thank you so much to the guests. Again, I'm going to have all their links in the description below. We've got DOS Tapes to thank. Thank you, DOS Tapes, for providing all of the tunes that you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Want to say thank you to, again, my guests. Want to remind you guys to like, share, subscribe. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers. So we had 300 people in here today for this discussion for the whole show. So that was a lot of fun. So again, thank you guys out there for all the support. The Patreons, want to say thank you to all my Patreons out there. If you want to consider joining our Patreon for as little as $1 a month, link is down below. Want to say thank you to everyone who sent super chats. Sorry if I missed them. Again, I didn't have my regular team here to make sure that we hit all of these super chats for you guys, but I hope we did a pretty good job at covering all of your questions as best we could. Want to thank all of my moderators, Tina Tomaszewski, Aaron Desario, and all the moderators out there that help the chat stay friendly. Don't forget to check out the Discord. The link for the Discord is down below if you want to continue discussion. I have a feeling it'll be continuing in the Discord, so go check that out. What else? Anything? I think that's everything. Doesn't matter. I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP, UFO, emerging tech, science, and futurism. My name's Luis Jimenez. Until next time, you guys stay safe out there. Peace. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.